I'm Tenitra Batiste, and the Squad Show does not get a bye, so maybe that means we're perfect. Just kidding. But what imperfections do the Falcons need to fix during their bye?
I'm Maria Martin, and the Falcons definitely are not perfect, but we're going to talk about ways where they can start to try to achieve perfection.
I'm Aaron Freeman, and I'm just looking forward to a Falcons-free, stress-free Sunday.
I'm Jarvis Davis, and I'm here so I won't get fined.
ATL! ATL! Rise up, A-Town. It's the Falcons Squad. Everything Atlanta Falcons every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from the ATL. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Straight from the ATL, the Falcons Squad Show starts now.
Welcome into the Falcons Squad Show, your home for the best Atlanta Falcons football talk. I'm your host, Tenitra Batiste, and alongside me are Locked On Falcons host Aaron Freeman, Locked On analyst Jarvis Davis, and 11 Alive anchor Maria Martin. And our program today is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Crossover Thursday is presented by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code Locked On NFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. So are the shoulders of this offense broad enough to carry this team? We'll discuss. And is Marquise in the same boat as James Lake was heading into the bye last year? We'll debate it. Also, what do the Falcons need to do to deny Bills Mafia? We'll download on that. But first, let's talk about what needs to be fixed at 500 for the Falcons to go above 500. So the Falcons are sitting at 2-2 through the first quarter of the 2025 season. Jarvis, looking back at the first four games, what's one thing that the Falcons need to, quote unquote, fix so it won't be an issue down the road?
Consistency on offense. I think that, that's the biggest thing for me because, seeing Michael Penix go out there against the Carolina Panthers and drop and lay an egg, that was something that that shocked a lot of people. And to be honest with you, I was kind of confident that he was going to come back. And I think that the main thing down the road is, we kind of talked about this a little bit when we were talking about, okay, where this offense is going to be and where they're going to go. And I think that with this offense at home, I trust this offense at home because you got the communication pieces there. They're able to do what they need to do. Now that Zach Robinson moved down to the sidelines, I'm interested to see how this offense can operate on the road because you got the 49ers. And, of course, you got the 49ers coming up after the Bills next week. So that's my thing that I feel like they need to get the communication down packed. Obviously they can work on that during the once they come back from the bye. And also, leading up to the matchup against the Bills, you're going to be at home. So you're not going to have the crowd. It's not going to be a factor. So for me, I think they need to get out in front of that communication piece and make sure they have that locked down so they can be consistent. And we can see the Michael Penix that we expected to see coming into the season.
And how about for you, Maria? Like you said, no, the Falcons aren't perfect, but there are some things that they can do to kind of address some of the imperfections that we've seen so far. And coming into the season, it's kind of you're looking at where they were then, how they are 4 games in, and kind of what they need to do. So when they do come back from the bye, we won't see some of those issues magnified down the road. So what's maybe one of the fixes for you?
Yeah, the first thing I was going to say was offensive consistency, but I will remind Aaron, you get 2 stress-free Sundays. Isn't that great? Because you're not stressed this Sunday, and then next Sunday, you won't be stressed as well because it's Monday Night Football. So just wanted to make sure everybody knew they got 2 Sundays off for the Falcons, which is great. No, but it's offensive consistency, all jokes aside. Jarvis is right. He hit the nail on the head because it is concerning when you see a decent performance and then a really bad performance and then a very good performance. And you got to find some middle ground there. What does this offense actually look like? I believe that they're working towards what they think their identity is. And we talked all offseason and heading into this year about the offense and how we felt like they were going to be the ones that hit on all cylinders and they were clicking on all cylinders early in the year. And certainly that hasn't happened, especially at the consistent clip that we're talking about that they need to strive for. And, you look at Michael Penix Jr., he showed you what we all, I think, believe that he is capable of. He's making every throw on the field short throws, intermediate throws. Obviously, the deep ball finally was back. Hasn't really had a chance to do that this year until this last game at home. And I will say something about Bills Mafia. I'm sure fans are going to get after me because there's a daunting Bills jersey hanging over my head. This is not my decoration, by the way. This is my husband's. This is my husband's jersey. But Bills Mafia travels. These people are crazy. What'd you say?
I said, I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to say something.
I know. And it's fine. And honestly, I'm proud of him. And I think that that's great. So I will leave it there. I'm not going to take it down. But what I will say is that Bills Mafia, they are crazy. They're going to be there. They'll be very loud. So that is an element that I think that the Falcons do have to be prepared for. Is it as daunting as on the road in Minnesota? No, of course not. That's a completely different environment when it's their home opener and they're doing the skull and, they got the horn going and that was nuts. But Bills Mafia travels very well. It is going to be loud in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. And I think that even just moving Zach Robinson down to the field, I don't think it solved every issue, but for him to be able to have immediate communication with the players that really needed it most, even Bijan Robinson being like, hey, can I do this better? Can I run this route better versus man versus zone? And he mentioned that in the locker room after the game. Last Sunday, I think that was really important. So getting the confidence of Michael Penix Jr. back was key. That I think is going to be the beginning of this consistency on offense that we're talking about.
Yeah, Maria, that was one of the things we talked about in post-game Sunday and even Monday, the fact that the Commanders fans were there in droves.
Yeah, they were loud.
And it was, yeah, exactly. It was a little unnerving, Maria, I'll be honest with you. And obviously it's because of where the press box is relative to where a lot of the fans will buy seats in those nosebleeds, if you will. But annoying nonetheless, and I saw way more of them than I thought I would. So the point that you make about the Buffalo Bills, Bills Mafia traveling well, and just being prepared for that being sort of like the intangible or sort of a secondary factor at your home in a home game, I think that's important as well. And like you said, I agree with Jarvis, and you make it 3 for 3 on the offensive consistency, kind of which offense is the Falcons' real one. Like, will the real Falcons offense please stand up? But for you, Aaron, what's the fix that you need to see so that some of the issues that we've seen in the first 4 weeks, we don't see not just show themselves or rear their ugly heads, but they don't get exacerbated across the next 3 quarters of the season?
Yeah, the correct answer, as everybody has pointed out, is the offensive consistency. But just to be different and bring up something a little bit off the beaten path, I do think the Falcons' run defense needs to step up, because until the offense finds that consistency, it can be a little bit of a roller coaster depending on, if they score 30 points, then yeah, the Falcons struggling against the run probably is not going to matter like we saw this past Sunday against Washington. But if they only score 17 points, all of a sudden another team like Buffalo, like San Francisco, some of these upcoming opponents will be like, okay, well, let's win this game 20-17. That's what a run-heavy attack can often do for you. It's not going to be the type of game where you're going to score a ton of points when the opposing team is running the football a ton, but they're controlling the clock. They're keeping that offense off the field. That offense is not able to get into the rhythm that we want to see it and be that consistent force. And the Falcons have mostly struggled in all 4 games in certain situations to stop the run. It's been primarily when they have their nickel defense in. And that is something that you'll see a number of teams. Washington was effective doing that. There are other teams coming up over this next month or so that are really good when they play with their 3 wide receiver sets that forces defenses to play with their nickel defense. And that's going to lead to potentially vulnerabilities for the Atlanta Falcons. And again, if the offense is consistent and performing and playing at a high level, this is probably not going to be a major issue. It's just going to be like, all right, the team is moving the ball, down the field by being able to run it. And then probably in the red zone, you would expect the Falcons defense to tighten up and get the stops that they need in order to prevent those scores. But if the offense isn't performing, some of those issues, those are going to be the things that are the margins where this opposing team is able to get that one more red zone opportunity that may result in a touchdown that could win one of these close games, simply because they're able to run the football effectively in these games. And that's going to limit the opportunities that the offense has to get back on the field. So I think that is something that the Falcons defense can clean up, but it's secondary to the offensive consistency.
Yeah. And I think you make a great point about the run defense, because when we think about what the Commanders were able to do, 147 yards on the ground, I think back to the explosive plays on the ground for them, and particularly in that opening drive. And I'm thinking, okay, great. And hey, look, this is not an offense, by the way, or an affront to Chris Rodriguez or Ja'Cory Merritt. What this is a compliment to James Cook. James Cook is number 2 in the NFL this season amongst running backs with 401 yards on some ridiculous number of carries. It's like 75 carries. And he is also that dual threat in terms of being able to be a pass catcher out of the backfield, but more importantly is what he does in the run game, and also what Josh Allen does in the run game. So when you talk about run defense, my mind also goes to that mobile quarterback like Josh Allen, who is a true dual threat QB who can really, really get to the second level the same way the darn running back can get to the second level. So certainly that needs to be tightened up heading into that showdown against the Bills. Not this coming Monday, but of course the following Monday. But yeah, Jarvis, when you kind of look at, and we'll switch it up since Maria and you kind of went on the offensive side of the ball and Aaron went on the defense. I'll ask Maria and you, what's maybe that one fix you'd like to see on the defensive side of the ball, not name the run defense, that also is something that, hey, with a little bit of a tweak, that'll just kind of shore things up defensively for the Falcons.
I don't know if it's necessarily a schematic like tweak, but I want to see more of Jesse Bates. I feel like I haven't seen Jesse Bates yet. I think that's one of those things where, you look for him to have those plays, and we've been getting that from Xavier Watts. Who would have thought that? Like, hey, we've been seeing that those interceptions, we've been seeing those game-turning type situations or turnovers being made by a rookie, in Xavier Watts. So I think that I would like to see more of Jesse Bates getting involved in being the guy to cheat a little bit now that he kind of trusts the youngster, right? Like he understands what the youngster is able to do. He's been able to make some plays. He's been kind of sniffing some things out. So maybe he can kind of get back to what he wanted to do. And that is, Aaron has laid it out beautifully on Locked On Falcons. Hey man, he's a cheater. Hopefully he doesn't cheat in real life, but you know what I'm saying? But
don't go down this path again, Jarvis. Do not go down this. I'm gonna save you right now.
Maria, I promise I won't. It was just something that briefly popped in my head. Y'all know how it is from keeping stuff from going from my brain to my mouth. You know what I'm saying? I just mentioned it and I'm gonna keep moving. So we ain't gonna go down that road.
All right,
but,
keep going.
But yeah, he's a good cheater on the football field and as far as being able to take the ball away. So that's what I would like to see coming out of Bible. Like, okay, he's a film rat to the day that he leaves this league. And I think that he's going to be the type of guy that kind of studies like, okay, how can I start to implement myself or put a stamp on this 2025 defense?
Yeah, because we're not accustomed to seeing a stat line 4 games into the season where, yes, he's one of the top tacklers for the Falcons. But on the same token, we're not seeing forced fumbles. We're not seeing fumble recoveries. And more importantly, we're not seeing interceptions. And as you mentioned, Jarvis, we know how important it has been with what we've seen with Xavier Watts and just the opportunity for the Falcons to have those turnovers, get the ball back, and hopefully score, but at a minimum, take the opportunity away from the opponent to score. And yeah, that's where 3 has to become 3 again. What about you, Maria? Maybe just one tweak on the defensive side.
Yeah, I mean, one thing about Jesse is that, remember last year, there wasn't a whole lot of people who could make splash plays like Jesse could. And now I feel like a lot of that is being taken off of him. And the same thing with Caden Ellis. We talk about Caden was the do-it-all guy on defense last year. And now there's a bunch of people around him that can do their job. And so it alleviates the pressure on guys like Jesse Bates and Caden Ellis to kind of do everything and be everything. And I mean, yeah, I agree with Jarvis. You always want to see Jesse make the big plays. And I think that's coming. But to share the wealth and to have someone starting opposite you like Xavier Watts, who has really honestly outperformed what I think a lot of people believed that he could as a rookie starting opposite. Absolutely. Jarvis is raising his hand. Yes. And I love Xavier. And I think, sky's the limit. He's already got 2 picks and he's a freshman out there. He is a rookie. And I think it's great to see him doing his thing. I don't really have any particular tweaks to this defense. I want them to continue doing what they're doing. That is what I want, because we're talking about offensive consistency. I want defense to be the same way. And they have been such a pleasant surprise, honestly, and they continue to get better week in and week out. Yeah, of course, like there's different things that the rookies can do better. And I just really enjoy what they've been cooking up so far. There's a lot of fresh, young energy. I think that really helps. And the way that they're rotating guys in and out has allowed them to do so many different things defensively, up front, schematically. It's so refreshing to see just how many different things Jeff Ulbrich has been able to create on the defensive side of the football. The aggression is there, the quickness to the ball. This is all stuff that is foreign to Falcons fans and to people that have watched this team for years. So I want them to continue what they're doing. That's going to be really important too against a Bills offense who are going to do everything that they can to kind of wear you out throughout 4 quarters. And I believe that the freshness of what the Falcons are playing with, rotating guys, we're talking about this hockey-like approach that Jeff Ulbrich talked about all the way back to when he first got here. I think that's really going to help you against Buffalo. So for me, it's staying consistent because that was one of their biggest kryptonites last year. And if you can stay consistent at the rate that they have been, I think that honestly, this defense will look very good towards the end of the year.
Yeah. And for you, Free, I'll challenge, since you started on the defensive side of the ball, what on offense, maybe just one tweak you want to see?
Yeah, more play action. It's been the going theme on Locked On Falcons and these Falcons Squad shows for seemingly 9 months now. So just get that play action passing game going. We saw some flashes this past Sunday. We want to keep building on that. And so that to me is kind of the major thing that I think can go a long way to really improving this offense.
I'm laughing because literally I tweeted during the game. I said, "Oh, look, play action." I was so excited, which is really sad, honestly.
Yes.
No, I think a lot of people kind of felt like that, Maria, like, wow, there it is. It's appeared. And wait,
It's funny.
It appeared and it is bringing success. It's yielding scores. So no, I think a lot of people were pleasantly surprised at seeing that. And also just kind of seeing a not so vanilla offense on Sunday. You just want to see more. But when you think about what this offense was able to do in last week's game, it's what you kind of expected. But are the shoulders of said offense broad enough to carry this team? We'll take that under further review. This episode of our Falcons Squad Show is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. And, with FanDuel, you have so many ways that you can actually play across the app. You can build parlays, try player props, even follow the live lines during games. It makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. And whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Again, you're going to love FanDuel because you can build parlays, try player props, and even follow the live lines during games. So again, visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. So, Maria, coming into the season, we talked about the offense and the fact that we felt it would carry the defense. Jarvis even went so far to say he felt like the offense needed to average at least 28 points for this team to really have a chance to win, right? So they've kind of sort of looked like at times that they figured it out, but ultimately we were looking for them to really, really figure it out until the defense kind of stepped up. Now, that was mainly because the defense was young. Granted, the defense has had some upticks, but when you look at Zach Robinson's offense, do you feel like it's headed in a direction that tells you that if and when they need to carry the load, they can?
I mean, I think it's headed in that direction. Do I think it's there? No, I mean, we're not even close. I think that the game against the Commanders finally gave everyone a little bit of hope, and hope is a dangerous thing when you're talking about the Falcons. I have learned this in my 6 years here. I understand, and I am an overtly positive person, okay? If you've met me, you know that I try to see the brighter side of everything. But I hear you guys. I hear the Falcons fans who are like yelling at me every Sunday, like, why are you so hopeful about anything? So hope is a dangerous thing that we're talking about. But I do have hope, okay? I just like doubled down on that. I do have hope just because of what I saw. I'm not completely convinced though, just because that was really honestly the first glimpse of something that seemed positive on offense. And which is honestly a shame because there is absolutely no reason why this offense shouldn't be towards the top of many different statistics league-wide when you have the kind of talent that you do. Granted, you have a young quarterback. We all know that Michael is going to have to figure some stuff out. He's going to have some bumps in the road. You expect him to have some more difficult games, hopefully not to the caliber of the Panthers game. You hope to never see something like that again, although it could happen. I mean, playing quarterback in the NFL is incredibly hard. I think it's the hardest position in the world. And Michael did show you a bounce back game against the Commanders. That showed beyond maturity. Okay. I'm very excited that he did that, because if he were to come out there and just look mediocre, you'd have concern. He looked really good. Okay. And he was doing things that we hadn't seen so far this season, which is important. And not to mention, take away the run offense, the pass offense, the guys that are getting downfield and blocking, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, that's the stuff that you look at from the Commanders game and you think, okay, these guys might be onto something. Kyle Pitts, y'all didn't believe me. Not saying you three, but a lot of people did not believe me when I was talking about Kyle in training camp. And everybody's like, oh, this is Kyle. You know, Kyle does this and he shows up in training camp and then he doesn't show up on the field. Kyle looks really good, you guys. Go back and watch the tape. He's blocking. What are you doing, Jarvis?
Who is this Kyle Pitts you speak of? I don't.
Have you seen this man?
Kyle Pitts Sr.
Oh, Kyle Pitts Sr. Yes. Okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah, he might get after me for that.
Yes.
Kyle Pitts Sr. Okay. Do we need to say Michael Penix Jr. now for you every single time?
Every single time.
I gotta know what you're talking about. You know what I'm saying? I get confused sometimes. You know what I mean?
No, you don't. You literally don't. Okay. But anyways, Kyle Pitts looks really good. Drake London finally had a breakout game, which we weren't totally convinced that he was 100% healthy. I'm gonna ignore Aaron having a mental breakdown right now. And Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier, getting everybody involved is what gives you that hope that I'm talking about. Once you have all of these playmakers involved on offense, which Michael did a very good job of, I think that gives you, I guess, a little bit of hope that moving forward, this offense can actually string something together.
Yeah. And I like, Maria, that you called out some of the things that I'll say are the intangibles, because we can look at the stat line and the stat line may tell us, hey, Bijan had this great game because he had another one of those 100 plus yards from scrimmage, or he had 100 plus yards rushing and 100 plus yards receiving. Then there's Tyler Algier and what he's able to do in the run game. And as you mentioned, Maria, even in the passing game with Michael Penix Jr. But what I really like that you called out, and to me, what takes your offense to the next level is when you do the little things like Kyle Pitts getting down the field and making those blocks. When Drake London is 100% healthy, and it shows in the way he's catching balls that maybe he wasn't catching the first couple of weeks, and he's doing his signature blocking, because that's always what he's been about. So I like the fact that you called out some of those smaller things, the details that don't show up in the box score that will be critical to this offense going next level. What about you, Aaron? When you kind of look at this offense, do you feel like they're showing you signs that they can carry the load?
Yeah, I think so. I think Maria nailed it in the sense of they're headed in the right direction. I am optimistic that the next 13 games are going to look better than the overall look of the first, let's say, 3 games. I'm not as confident that each of the next 13 games is going to look like the Washington game. I think it's going to be a bit of a roller coaster before this team really, hopefully, finds their footing, post Thanksgiving, when they probably will really need their offense to go on a run, because they'll probably need to, win 4 out of their last 5 games or whatever they need to do in order to win the division or make the wild card. That's just the nature of the NFL. And so I feel like this is a great starting point that I think they can get there, but we're, basically 2 months away from getting there. And I think it's going to be a little bit of a roller coaster. And I think Maria's going to still hear from folks that are, freaking out every Sunday because it's not always clicking, especially this next game against Buffalo. I think is going to be a real challenge for this offense. But I do think some of the points that Maria made, as well as UT, this offense is at its best when you have all these premium weapons that they have playing at a high level. You have obviously the quarterback in Michael Penix. You have Bijan Robinson. You have Drake London getting going. Kyle Pitts is off to the best start of his NFL career, even better than the rookie season in terms of just performance. Maybe he's not putting up quite the numbers because he's got to share the football with more players now than he had his rookie season. And they still haven't gotten Darnell Mooney going. And so there's still a lot of untapped potential for this offense. And so if they can get all those guys going, get Tyler Algier to continue doing Tyler Algier things. The offensive line continues to be a much more stable unit than we were worried about going into the season. Those are all the boxes that this team has the ability to check that is going to get a consistently high level product that can deliver on the point total that Jarvis, the ever shifting point total that Jarvis was pushing this summer, where it was just increasingly going up each and every week on these squad shows. I think we got to 30 by the time we got to the end of preseason. Yes. But I think they're on the path to doing that. I just think people need to be a little patient because I don't think it's going to be instantly there moving forward, but I think they are on that path. And they still got some things they got to figure out, but I think the question is, are they headed in the right direction? Yeah, I think they're headed in that direction, but it's probably going to be a little rocky before we can truly go into each and every Sunday or Monday or whenever the Falcons are playing, feeling very confident that they're going to live up to the Jarvis Davis standard when it comes to the offense.
How many points are we at, Jarvis?
Right. We're 28 right now. We're 28 right now.
Okay, so we're holding at 28.
We're holding at 28 right now. Yes.
Okay, guys.
Respectfully. Understood. Well, you might want to ratchet it up just a hair because Buffalo can score. Yeah. Like Buffalo flat out scores on a regular. So it's great, but they're coming in as a 4-0 team that scored 41, 30, 31, 31. So I don't know, Jarvis, you might want to ratchet that up just a little bit. Unless, as you guys mentioned earlier, the run defense shows up and puts James Cook in check and keeps Josh Allen in check. Then we're not talking about a need to score in the 30s. But that said, do you see things in this offense that tells you, hey, they're getting closer to the point where they need to be, which is understanding you're where the superstars are, you're where the juggernauts are. So therefore you should be carrying this team, especially because at the end of the day, if you look back at the last several drafts, you were built to carry this franchise.
Yeah. I mean, this is Terry Fontenot's vision coming to fruition, right? Like you draft 3 offensive players consecutively, in the first round. Like that's what you expect it, especially when one of them is a quarterback and you finally have him under center. And then you finding Drake London, you're getting the rock to Kyle Pitts when he gets the favorable matchup. Raheem Morris was like putting out sayings, shockingly making profound statements at his press conference, like, hey man, you going man to man with Kyle Pitts, good luck to you. Like he's kind of like flexing himself a little bit, so I think that the Commanders, and the interesting thing about the Commanders game, I feel like that was the blueprint, right? Not necessarily Michael Penix completing 76% of his passes, for the next 13 games, like Free mentioned, but it's a matter of you getting the rock to Bijan Robinson, you moving him around on this offense, and then you get into the point in the fourth quarter where you saying, you know what, we about to play a keep away. We don't care you about to know we're going to run the football. We're going to give the ball to 25, and 25 going to turn this bad boy out. And then he's going to get one of those touchdowns where it's saying, oh, yeah, the defenders don't want to tackle him at this point in the games. So I think that's the blueprint. And I think that, it's funny. I find it very interesting that we're talking about the defense holding it down for until the offense finds some consistency, like, because it was the exact opposite leading into the season. Like, okay, this defense is young, they got a lot of young guys, the guys got to figure it out how to play in the NFL and see what's going on. and then next, boom, you got number one pass defense in the league. you're leading the league NFC in sacks. Last time I checked, the leading the NFC in sacks, right now. So it's just so many things that we did not expect coming into the season that are actually happening.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the answer should be a resounding yes, that they should be carrying this team, and they're on their way because the defense is playing much better than you expected through the first quarter of the season.
Yeah, defense is playing better than expected. Offense is trending up, but that third unit, is Marquise Williams in the same boat as James Lake was heading into the bye because of the third unit? We'll unpack that in Next Up. This episode of our Falcons Squad Show is brought to you by Game Time. NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle between queues, login screens, prices jumping at checkout. It's frustrating. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. And when you pull up Game Time, in just a couple of taps, you'll see amazing deals like your favorite NFL games as low as $100. And the app has made things super simple so you can see the exact view from your seat before buying. And gotta love those zone deals. Pick the section, Game Time picks the seats, and you save big. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Now, terms do apply, but again, that's promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket. Go. Download Game Time today. So, Aaron, we've had several not so good conversations about the special teams unit this season. Going into the bye last year, Raheem Morris had to get involved to make some improvements on defense. So when you look at the way special teams unit has played so far, is Marquise Williams under that same pressure that one James Lake was under last year to get this thing fixed?
I don't think we're there yet. We get a couple more rocky games like we've gotten this first month of the season. Okay, I'll probably be singing a different tune, but I feel like the difference with obviously, Mr. Lake was he did not have a ton of, or didn't really have any NFL play calling experience. And so you were already sort of skeptical from the jump. And as we've discussed, T, I think because the Falcons special teams has been, generally a positive for this team over the last, 4 or 5 now, year 5 for Marquise Williams.
Yeah.
The standard is high, but I don't, the reason why the standard is high is because we all generally think Marquise Williams is a very competent coach. And I feel like some of the issues on special teams are just kind of like bad luck, maybe not the best way of describing, but just kind of like, I don't know how much control Marquise Williams has over that, with the kicking game just kind of not working the way that the Falcons envisioned it working. And you're sort of kind of having to call an audible with John Parker Romo, and you're, feeling okay off of last week's game, but you just don't know at this point moving forward. And I don't know how much I would blame that on Marquise Williams. I'm just like, kickers are kind of their own thing, which is why they're so polarizing to folks, because they kind of live in their own world. Bradley Pinion in the punt game, he had that one really bad game, but for the most part, it's been solid. So, to me, that feels like a bad game. The whole, like, we spent a lot of time after that Carolina game talking about why can't they field kickoffs, but, doing the research afterwards, it's like, oh, Carolina is really good with that knuckleball kick, and they just didn't have the right guys ready to deal with that, in part due to the injuries to Jamal Agnew and all that stuff. So I do feel like Marquise Williams deserves some grace, but if we're still riding this roller coaster for, the next couple of games, and it's good, it's bad, it's good, it's bad, that sort of thing, then I think we can start entertaining the possibility of, does there need to be an intervention? But at the same time, Raheem Morris made his bones as one of the NFL's best defensive coordinators and was a big part of the Rams winning a Super Bowl. And so it was kind of natural to expect him to be like, okay, well, Jimmy Lake's, that was kind of the assumption when he named Jimmy Lake the DC. Was like, oh, well, Raheem's going to have some control and whatnot. Raheem's sort of said publicly that he doesn't really know what's going on in special teams. Like, so I don't know how much of an intervention you can kind of expect from the head coach. Is just kind of like Marquise is going to have to kind of figure it out on his own. So I don't know if we need an intervention when it comes from the coaching standpoint, but certainly that unit is going to continue to be under heavy scrutiny.
Yeah. And, Maria, when you look at special teams, especially this season, there have been maybe more tight games decided by like 3 points, essentially a field goal, than maybe in the history of the NFL. And part of the reason, Maria, is because kickers are able to just boot it like 50, 52, 55 yards. It's like a PAT at this point for some kickers. So Aaron is right. Like, that's not necessarily Marquise Williams' fault, but maybe some of the other miscues, like Jarvis said, not seeing anybody call Peter in that Carolina Panthers game can be troubling. And you might look back and look at Marquise and say, hey, where's the discipline, within your squad? But that said, do you feel like, with all things considered, Marquise Williams is in that same boat that James Lake found himself in around the bye week last season?
I don't. I think they're two totally different scenarios, especially because Jimmy, whatever you guys want to call him, Jimmy Lake.
James. Jimmy.
Anyways, Jimmy Lake.
I'm sorry, we went full federal, but it's okay.
I know. I think that there were more glaring issues with play calling on defense. And obviously, I think with special teams, Marquise has kind of proven himself a little bit more over, his tenure here in Atlanta. But even so, things can change. You can be proven, i.e. Younghoe Koo, and then things start to fall off, to stay on the special teams theme that we're talking about. Mm-hmm. But I think a lot of this stuff from Marquise is kind of out of his control. The kicking game, no one even came close to predicting that Younghoe Koo was going to completely fall off the map and then end up on another team. And then, excuse me, and then John Parker Romo has this unbelievable game and debut in Minnesota. And then what the heck are we looking at in Carolina, which the whole team was like that, and then redeemed himself a bit against the Commanders. And so it has just kind of been a roller coaster. And to use, I think it was Zach Robinson's phrase, a comedy of errors. I think that's kind of how it's just kind of played out for special teams so far. And they've played some good teams that illustrate special teams very well. The Commanders, their special teams unit has been incredibly strong throughout the beginning of the season. And you saw that again against Atlanta. And so I don't think that's really necessarily an indictment on Atlanta. And Atlanta has some really good pieces on their special teams unit. It's just been injuries. And then the kicking game has just kind of been a disaster. And, to your mentioning it, when you have kickers that can consistently boot 50 plus yards on a consistent basis, and then you have kicking game for the Falcons that is so inconsistent. Yeah. I don't think that that's Marquise Williams's fault. So no, I don't think he's under the same breath. Now, if we turn into a carousel of kickers by the time we're talking about halfway through the season, maybe we start to scratch our heads and think, what the heck is going on? I just don't think that that's something you can blame Marquise for at this point.
Yeah, and that's very fair. And I think, Jarvis, that Marquise Williams has built up at least enough cachet across time to be able to get some grace for what we've seen in the up and down of special teams so far this season.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I was encouraged by, a couple of things I've been encouraged by, was specifically, locking down Jamal Agnew, getting healthy, having him back there. And then I like what I saw from Ray McLeod in this past game against the Commanders from a return standpoint. When Natron Brooks got hurt in that particular return, they ended up re-kicking it. And Marquise Williams went back with the same return, and they were able to get almost just as many yards as Natron Brooks got on his return. So I think when you talk about that, seeing something, recognizing something, seeing something, and making the necessary adjustment, or hey man, run it back. We're gonna go with the same return because we know we saw something on film coming into this game that, hey, we know we can take advantage of that. And that's one thing that you always appreciate, right? Because even if the inconsistency with the kicker and having to make changes and getting rid of a guy that had done so much for you in Younghoe Koo, the fact that you're willing to make that change, the fact that you're willing to make that necessary adjustment, I feel like Marquise Williams is not in the same boat as a James Lake. So for me, I think the jury's still going to be out, because guess what? When John Parker Romo lines up that kick in Mercedes-Benz Stadium against the Buffalo Bills, you doggone right, I might have a little pit in my stomach. I'm sure. No doubt. It's going to be there until I see some consistency, right? Like, but especially if it's like a 35-yard field goal, I might lose my mind. But you don't put these two guys in the same category, because, like Free mentioned, he's a guy that's been there, done that. He's raised the level expectation for this special team unit. And I think that he's going to have to figure this out, especially when you have a head coach admitting, like, hey, man, I don't know about all that technical stuff. You either make it or you miss it. Like, he's just looking at the end result. And when you have a coach in that particular situation, another coach who's willing to make a change, he fired James Lake. He got rid of the defensive line coach. Younghoe Koo not doing what he's supposed to do. Oh, we're going to bring somebody in here to get it figured out. Oh, yeah, the offense is not clicking quite a bit. If you can call him a scapegoat, whatever. I kill you. He out of here. And the offense, I'm not saying that was the reason why the offense was better, but, you have a guy who understands that we can't give people the benefit of the doubt, especially if you don't feel that confident in what they're capable of. So I feel like in that moment, if Marquise Williams continues to get his unit being able to have an effect on the game from time to time or throughout this rest of this season, I feel like we won't even be having a conversation about whether or not he's going to be around, especially in season.
Yeah. And I think too, when I look back at, and Marie, it's interesting that you mentioned the Washington Commanders and kind of what they're able to do on special teams. And so I think about, the up and down of special teams, right? Mm-hmm. And the fact that if you can identify something like they identified, or the Falcons identified, without a Jamal Agnew, that kind of makes things challenging for us. Or that's why things were challenging for us with the Panthers, because of the way, they kick the ball, if you will. We know the Commanders are coming in, and we know that there's something special. Okay, so now you've had those two opportunities against maybe two of the best special teams or the better special teams units in all of the NFL. So now you've got a week to work on it and say, okay, here comes another pretty solid special teams unit in the Buffalo Bills. And we know that this is a team that can score and score at will. So it's important to kind of tweak those little things, like being able to use special teams to help to flip the field and give Michael Penix Jr. a shorter field to work with, make Josh Allen drive the length of the field, if you will. So hopefully they're kind of figuring those things out. And not to be funny, because we don't want to pick on Parker Romo because he had a semblance of a bounce back, but I just really hope Parker Romo is not taking a break in these 2 weeks. I just really hope he is somewhere in Flowery, just kicking. Somebody is just getting the ball to him, kick. Ball to Parker Romo, kick. Just keep kicking. Like right now, I just want to wake up tomorrow and say, hey, anybody seen Parker Romo? Oh, he's still in Flowery Branch kicking. Yeah, that's what I want for special teams. But I agree with you guys. It's not so much maybe anything that Marquise Williams is or isn't doing. It's just maybe the pieces that have normally been in place for him weren't in place for him, and the pieces haven't been 100% healthy. And sometimes you just gotta.
Your Carter Hodge missed his.
You just finished my sentence. Yep, that's what I was gonna say. Like, you've got critical pieces that have yet to take the field in a Kadero Hodge. So who knows what that might look like as those guys get back 100%. Now, speaking of the Falcons, they have to be sure that when they walk into the building next Monday, they're ready to deny Bills Mafia. And maybe, to Jarvis's point, there's a guy that's on the mend, or a couple of guys that are on the mend that can help them to do it. We'll tell you about that in the look ahead. This episode of our Falcons Squad Show is brought to you by Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride with more IIHS top safety pick plus awards than anyone else as of August 2025. From footwork to breath work, athlete sweat, all the details. Mazda brings this same intention to how we craft every model. And you can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery. You can also make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. And with all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. So like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every moment count, impossible becomes irrelevant. And like the players, Mazda sweats every single detail, just like we were talking about the Falcons sweating every single detail on offense, defense, and special teams as they get set to take on the Buffalo Bills when they return from the bye. And why does Mazda sweat every detail? Because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. So Jarvis, Taquan Graham, Storm Norton, Braylon Trice, all scheduled to come off IR in week 6. So their return is imminent for the Falcons. Which one of these guys, though, do you see potentially having an immediate impact on this team when he returns?
The first guy that pops to my mind is Taquan Graham.
Yeah.
Because like his specialty is stopping the run. And I think that you need a defensive tackle that's going to have that, because based off of what the Falcons have put out there on tape, I know there's going to be some teams going to try to take advantage of that going forward. So if you can have a guy like a Taquan Graham that can be that run stuffing type of defensive tackle, I feel like that's the guy that's going to be able to help you out the most going forward. I thought about Braylon Trice, but I wanted to kind of focus on that run game, because y'all know how I am. Like I can't stand when guys just turn around and hand the ball off. You know they're going to do it, and they just get 4, 5, 48,
6.7,
4, 5, 7. You know, I can't stand that, because like that was my passion. That was my pleasure, stopping the run back in the day. So yeah, to see those guys and see how things has turned out through these first 4 games, I feel like Taquan Graham, given the situation, could be the guy that can help them out the most on defense side of the football.
Yeah, and I like that, because we all talked about run defense being the area where, if defensively there is a weakness or an area of improvement for the Falcons, that's where it is. And you look particularly at you look particularly at the Washington Commanders, because actually not half bad when it came to Minnesota, when you're talking about 19 carries for 76 yards, I think 101 yards against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So the Falcons have had, some semblance of success, but I think it's more of like when you see a game like the Commanders, or even Carolina going over 100 yards, and you also see some of those explosive plays and the potential for those explosive plays with a guy like James Cook to actually lead to a score. You do maybe want someone like TQ to come back and have that immediate impact, because you got to be prepared for him. And of course, Josh Allen as well. And what about for you, Maria, when you kind of look at TQ and his imminent return, Braylon Trice, Storm Norton, all scheduled to come off IR, who do you feel like potentially can have an immediate impact on this team when he returns, or who do you feel like needs to have an immediate impact?
When we were losing offensive linemen left and right, you would have thought Storm Norton would have been the person that you would circle on that list, but Elijah's been fine, and you don't feel like bringing Storm Norton back is dire. You don't need to put him in there. You don't need to replace Elijah. If it wasn't working for Elijah, of course, he can always improve on things. But if it wasn't working for him, then you might think, okay, let's change some stuff. But right now, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So leave that alone. Braylon Trice was somebody that the entire coaching staff, especially on the defensive side of the football, and then, of course, Raheem, was extremely excited about after training camp, and they loved what he could bring to the table. Of course, you didn't see him last year, then you're not seeing him this year, and it becomes what I said at the beginning of the year before the season started. Has he missed the boat on the Falcons roster? That's my biggest concern for Braylon Trice. His only benefit right now is that if he is going to get in the mix, this would be the defense to do it, because they are rotating guys in and out. So there is an opportunity for him to get involved. at some degree, some level, not in a starting type role. TQ is like the quintessential Jeff Ulbrich defensive tackle. He loves those guys that are long and lengthy and have very long arms. And I think that this is a player that he is dying to get back in this rotation. And again, we've been talking about rotation for a long time, but TQ, he's a veteran now. He's someone that I think Jeff Ulbrich has wanted to get his hands on and get involved. And stopping the run, like Jarvis mentioned, is so critical, especially when you're getting ready to face the Bills, who can hit you in so many different ways offensively. This is someone who can not only help, but bolster what they're already doing well on defense. And so for me, it's TQ. You get him back healthy, you get him back in the rotation. That takes them a tick further than what we're already talking about on defense, and it's already good.
Yeah, because you kind of look into his stats and some of the areas where, he was really having some upticks in STFs and fumble recoveries, and just kind of being another one of those guys who in a multiples type defense you can actually use effectively against a team like the Buffalo Bills. So for you, Aaron, kind of what do you think? You've got TQ on his way back. You got Braylon Trice on his way back, and you've got Storm Norton on his way back. But impact-wise, and I love what Maria said too as well, because anytime we're not having conversation on a consistent basis about Elijah Wilkinson or anyone on that O-line, that's a good thing. So I think that should be pointed out also. But yeah, Aaron, for you, which one of those guys do you think either will make an immediate impact upon return, or that the Falcons need to see make an immediate impact?
Yeah, I think Maria nailed it in the sense of when you look at this trio of players, like you look at Storm Norton potentially being a starter and Taquan Graham and Braylon Trice being more rotational pieces and probably on the lower end of the rotation in terms of the hierarchy. And so your immediate thought is like, of course, Storm Norton's going to have the bigger impact coming back, and he may wind up still starting games at some point this season. But as Maria pointed out, and as you just pointed out, T, Elijah Wilkinson's been fine. He's been, solid, maybe too strong a word, but like he's been fine.
Dang,
I'm not saying he's been bad or anything like that, but like, if you're taking the 4 games as a whole, he's probably been the weak link on the offensive line for 3 of them. I thought
that's what he should be. He's a backup.
Yeah. So like, that's why I'm like, I'm not going to go solid when it's like everybody knows attack this guy. But I thought against Washington, he wasn't the weak link. I thought, Ryan Newsel, doing great, not so great against Washington. But, there's going to be some challenges coming up this next couple of games. You got Greg Rousseau against Buffalo. Fortunately, Elijah Wilkinson or whoever starts at right tackle isn't going to have to see Nick Bosa. But, they'll get Jarvis's boy, Michael Williams.
Brother Joy.
And so you got some challenges coming up. Laiatu Latu coming a little bit later when the Falcons go to Germany. And we'll see how Elijah Wilkinson holds up over that month. So I do feel like Storm Norton has the most potential because, a month from now, we may be like, well, the Elijah Wilkinson, train kind of ran out of steam there, sometime in October or whatever, and we might need to turn to Storm Norton. But I honestly think like the difference between Elijah Wilkinson and Storm Norton is probably not going to be that drastic. I think you could probably say, okay, Storm Norton could be maybe a little bit more trustworthy when it comes to pass protection, but I kind of think Elijah Wilkinson's probably a little bit going to bring you a little bit more oomph in the run game. And so it's kind of a wash between those two guys. And we'll just be like, yeah, we swapped out Elijah Wilkinson for Storm Norton, and it's still the same issue where it's like, attack that guy. He's kind of still the weak link on the offensive line, and we got to scheme things around it to try to mask those issues. But that may be further down the line. But I think, as Jarvis and Maria pointed out, in terms of like immediate boost to the team right now, like I do think Taquan Graham and what he could add to the run defense could definitely benefit this team in a major way in the short term, but probably long term, probably by season's end, I think we'll probably see Storm Norton in the mix as a starter, and that will, potentially have a greater impact over the next 13 games, but probably over the next 3 games, I think Taquan Graham probably has the biggest impact.
I like where you went with that, Free. So Jarvis, I'll send it back to you as far as the long-term impact, because our question was around immediate impact and who maybe the Falcons need to have an immediate impact and who we believe could have an immediate impact. But I love what Aaron said. When you look at those three guys across the duration of time and who could be most impactful or who the Falcons need to be more impactful, which one of those three guys is that guy?
For long term, it's Braylon Trice. I feel like I believe in Braylon Trice. I think he can be one of those guys, can be a nice edge player, be able to set the edge, and really be strong in the run game and give you be relentless in the passing game or in the pass rush game. So for me, I think it's Braylon Trice because and the good thing about it is that there's no pressure really, to be honest with you, because you got multiple guys that can rush from outside, but I think he's going to be a guy that's going to be chomping at the bit to get an opportunity to prove himself. Hey, man, I belong. I was drafted in the third round for a reason, and I want to be here. And, we had some conversations that were a little uncomfortable for me, about like where did he get his snaps from? Like, who is he going to take snaps from? Because, the first rounders were going to get in Jalen Walker and James Pierce Jr. So I think now coming off an injury, kind of being the forgotten one again, I feel like he has an opportunity to have an effect on his team long term because of just given the situation that he's been in, coming off injury last year or being down for the season last year and then trying to come back and showing some flashes in preseason, but still not having to go to IR. And now he's on his way back. I feel like he's the perfect candidate for me to say, okay, talking about long-term impact that probably is going to be unexpected because you got so many other guys that you're expecting to get production from. It has to be Braylon Trice for me.
Yeah, I think that's a great call too. And something else you said, Jarvis, just the fact that they believe in what he's able to bring to the table. We've also seen, you have like those flash moments, whether it is in training camp or preseason, there are just certain players where you're like, I know you got it. I know it's in there. It's just a matter of your body allowing you to show exactly what it is that you're capable of. And Braylon Trice is kind of that guy. I like too that Free called out Storm Norton and what he could be able to do across like the duration of the season, because we absolutely know he's a guy that the Falcons just keep. And when I say bringing back, it's like they just keep on keeping on when it comes to Storm Norton. So you know that there's something there. It's just a matter of what do you need in the immediate, and then what do you need long term. And those two guys are probably the guys where you're okay if there's a ramp up to where they get to be really effective for this team. And for you, Free, when you think about another guy that's on his way back, Raheem Morris mentioned in his presser that A.J. Terrell could be back next week. How important would it be to see CB1 come back from an injury as the Falcons get set to face one of the top 5 passing offenses in the NFL in the Buffalo Bills?
It's huge.
Yeah.
It's like when you're going to play the Bills, you're going to play a lot of man coverage because we're like, if we play zone against Josh Allen, like you understand why teams play zone against Josh Allen because of the running ability. But like, if you're going to give Josh Allen windows to throw into that you get from zone, like he's going to pick apart your team. And so what you want to do is you want to play man coverage to sort of shrink those windows and force Josh Allen to make those tight window throws. Now we know that Josh Allen can make those tight window throws. So it's not as if like that's a magic cure for your defense, but you just gotta try to make it harder. You just making it too easy for a quarterback of his caliber to play zone against him. So you play a lot of man coverage. And the reality is the Falcons man coverage without A.J. Terrell, it was fine against Carolina. It was less fine against Washington. And Washington didn't have their starting quarterback. They didn't have their number 1 wide receiver. And you still saw instances of Deebo Samuel and Luke McCaffrey and some of these other guys beating this cornerback group. I thought, Michael Hughes was mostly solid besides that one touchdown he gave up. It was a little rough for D. Alford, after the solid game he had against Carolina. And it's like, the D. Alford experience the clock may have struck midnight on. We had that one game. Hey, great job, D. You redeemed yourself a certain extent, and now we kind of reverted back to D. Alford being a question mark. And so going up against the Buffalo Bills, if you get that version of D. Alford, with the man coverage that the Falcons, I think, want to play, and if the Falcons go into that game being like, I don't know if we can play man coverage because we can't trust D. Alford, it's going to be a long night for the Falcons defense is basically the point I'm trying to get. And so like A.J. Terrell is like critical. Like the only real chance I think the Falcons have to slow down this Bills offense is if A.J. Terrell plays in that game. And then, of course, obviously it's still going to matter for past this week 6 matchup against Buffalo. So I think getting A.J. Terrell back for this Bills games is going to be huge for this defense and obviously for the defense moving forward.
Yeah, because if not, Jarvis is giving week 14 of the 2024 season against the Minnesota Vikings, if you follow what I'm saying. But that said, A.J. Terrell looks like he could be on the way back. Good look for this Falcons team. And for you, when you think about that, I mean, how important is it? You get back your Pro Bowl corner to be able to face off against one of the most potent offenses and that has one of the most potent passing games. And we know receivers who can get themselves in position to score.
A.J. Terrell coming back gives Jeff Ulbrich options.
Yes.
It gives him the free will to work some things, try some things out. Hey, I'm gonna play man coverage here. I'm going to have A.J. Terrell over here on Keon Coleman on the backside. And then we're going to roll coverage the other way so we can keep eyes on 17 because, you know, like true enough, you want to be able to play man against Josh Allen. But, oh, my gosh, once those corners and those linebackers start turning around and running and have their back to him, it's going to be a long day. So, you know, A.J. Terrell coming back allows you to do some combo coverage, to just switch some things up, throw some different looks at him. Give him that mug look at the line of scrimmage, and try to confuse and throw those guys, the offensive line, off up front. So, and I think that's going to be the thing that is going to help the Falcons a lot, tremendously, if A.J. Terrell is back, because when you have a guy like that who can basically take people away, you know, he's taking away Scary Terry. A lot of people are like, oh, okay, you know, and when he was matched up against Justin Jefferson, you know, in the Vikings last year, hey, you saw what happened. What was he? You know, so A.J. Terrell is that guy. And I'm not hesitating when I say that because for some time it was a little sketchy. But now that we see what A.J. Terrell is capable of, he's in the right system. He's being put in position to succeed. Jeff Ulbrich knows what he's doing. And I think that if he's able to come back, I feel like that's going to work out. You may be talking about a couple points coming off that FanDuel line on Sunday for sure. I mean, on Monday night. My bad.
For sure. Thanks to our everydayers for making the Falcons Squad Show your first listen of the day. Be sure to stop by Locked On Falcons with your host, Aaron Freeman, as your second listen. And check out Maria Martin, host of Sports Extra on Sundays on 11 Alive. And you can catch Jarvis as a frequent contributor for Locked On Falcons and Sports Extra. See you next time.